The hospital room hums with sterile quiet, the fluorescent lights casting a cold glow over Aisha's sweat-dampened face. Her breaths are ragged, triumphant, as she clutches the newborn to her chest. Her husband, Malik, stands frozen at the foot of the bed, his eyes locked on the baby. Not with joy, not with love, but with something unreadable, something that makes Aisha's heart stutter. "Malik," she whispers, her voice trembling. He doesn't answer. His gaze flicks to her, sharp and fleeting, before he turns and walks out the door. Aisha had always believed in the kind of love that felt like home. At 29, she'd built a life that mirrored the interiors she designed. Thoughtful, warm, deliberate. Her marriage to Malik was the cornerstone of that life, a partnership of quiet mornings and shared dreams. They'd met 5 years ago at a client's gallery opening, where Malik, a soft-spoken architect, had complimented her use of reclaimed wood in a minimalist loft. Their connection was instant, rooted in a mutual appreciation for beauty in the ordinary. Now, as she lay in the hospital bed, the weight of their newborn daughter in her arms, Aisha felt the culmination of that love. But Malik's expression, distant, almost haunted, cracked something inside her. The days leading up to the birth had been a blur of anticipation. Aisha's family, sprawling and loud, had descended on their cozy Brooklyn apartment, filling it with laughter and the scent of her mother's cardamom-spiced tea. Her sisters braided her hair, her father offered unsolicited advice on crib assembly, and Malik, ever steady, held her hand through it all. "You're going to be an incredible mother," he'd whispered one night, his lips brushing her temple. She'd believed him, because she always had. Malik was her anchor, the one who grounded her emotional tides. But now, in the sterile hospital room, that anchor felt like it was slipping. The baby, whom they'd named Noor, let out a soft whimper, and Aisha's heart swelled. She traced Noor's tiny fingers, marveling at their perfection. Yet her eyes kept darting to the door, waiting for Malik to return. The nurse, a kind woman with a graying bun, bustled in, checking monitors. "Your husband stepped out for some air, love. First-time fathers, they get overwhelmed." Aisha nodded, forcing a smile, but the nurse's words didn't soothe the unease curling in her chest. Hours passed, and Malik finally reappeared, his face composed but his eyes guarded. "Sorry," he muttered, sinking into the chair beside her. "Just needed a moment." Aisha searched his face, her intuition prickling. "Is everything okay?" He hesitated, then reached for her hand. "Yeah, just a lot, you know." She wanted to believe him. She did. But the way his thumb paused on her knuckles, the way his gaze slid past Noor, told her something was wrong. The next week unfolded in a haze of sleepless nights and tender moments. Aisha threw herself into motherhood, learning the rhythm of Noor's cries, the weight of her in her arms. Her family was a constant presence, her mother cooking vats of lentil stew, her sisters arguing over who got to hold Noor first. Malik, though, was different. He went through the motions, changing diapers, warming bottles, but there was a distance in his touch, a hesitation that hadn't been there before. One evening, as Aisha rocked Noor to sleep, she caught Malik staring at the baby from across the room. His jaw was tight, his hands clenched. "Malik," she said softly, "talk to me." He blinked, as if startled. "I'm fine, Aisha. Just tired." "You're not fine." Her voice was gentle but firm, the kind of tone she used when coaxing a client to trust her vision. "You've barely looked at her." His eyes flickered with something. Guilt? Fear? "I'm just adjusting," he said, standing abruptly. "I'm going for a walk." The door clicked shut, and Aisha's chest tightened. She looked down at Noor, whose tiny chest rose and fell in sleep, and felt a surge of protectiveness. Her intuition, the same instinct that guided her to pair textures and colors, was screaming now. Something was wrong, and it wasn't just new parent nerves. The next morning, Aisha's mother, Amira, sat at the kitchen table, sipping tea and watching her daughter with knowing eyes. "You're carrying too much, Habibti," Amira said, her voice low. "What's on your mind?" Aisha hesitated, cradling Noor against her shoulder. "It's Malik. He's different. Since the hospital." Amira's brow furrowed. "Different how?" "He's distant. He won't talk about it, but I can feel it." Aisha's voice cracked, and she swallowed hard. "It's like he's hiding something." Amira reached for her hand, her grip warm and steady. "Men carry their burdens quietly. But you're his wife. You have a right to know." That night, as Malik slept beside her, Aisha lay awake, her mind racing. She thought of their life together, the late-night sketches, the way he'd laugh at her obsession with vintage lamps. She thought of the hospital, his unreadable stare. And she thought of Noor, who deserved a father who loved her without reservation. Quietly, she slipped out of bed and padded to the living room. Malik's phone sat on the coffee table, its screen dark. Her fingers hovered over it, guilt warring with curiosity. She'd never invaded his privacy before, but the weight of his silence was too heavy. With a trembling hand, she picked up the phone and entered his passcode, her birthday. The screen lit up, revealing a text notification from an unknown number. "We need to talk." "It's about her." Aisha's breath caught. "Her." "Noor." Her thumb hovered over the message, her heart pounding. Before she could open it, the floor creaked behind her. She spun around to find Malik standing in the doorway, his face pale. "What are you doing?" he asked, his voice low, almost dangerous. Aisha's mouth went dry, the phone burning in her hand. Aisha stood frozen in the dim glow of the living room, Malik's phone heavy in her hand. The text notification, "We need to talk." "It's about her," burned into her mind. Her husband's silhouette loomed in the doorway, his eyes narrowing as they flicked to the phone. The air between them crackled with unspoken questions. "I couldn't sleep," Aisha said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I was just checking the time." She set the phone down, her fingers trembling slightly. Malik's gaze lingered on her, searching, but he didn't move closer. "It's late," he said finally, his tone flat. "Come back to bed." She nodded, brushing past him, her heart hammering. As she slid under the covers, Malik's breathing was slow and even, but Aisha lay awake, the words of that text looping in her head. "It's about her." Noor. Someone else? The uncertainty gnawed at her, sharp and relentless. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the apartment's sheer curtains, casting soft patterns on the hardwood floor. Aisha sat at the kitchen table, Noor nestled against her chest, while Malik sipped coffee across from her. He was quiet, his eyes fixed on his mug, and the silence felt heavier than it ever had. Aisha's intuition, finely tuned from years of reading clients' unspoken needs, screamed that something was off. But she didn't know how to bridge the gap between them without shattering the fragile normalcy of their routine. "I'm meeting a client today," she said, testing the waters. "A new project in Williamsburg. I'll take Noor with me." Malik glanced up, his expression unreadable. "You sure? She's only a week old." "I'll manage," Aisha replied, forcing a smile. "It's just a consultation. Besides, I need to get back to work." He nodded, but his eyes drifted to Noor, and Aisha caught the flicker of something. Discomfort, maybe, or guilt. "Call if you need me," he said, standing to rinse his mug. As he left for his own office, Aisha watched him go, her chest tight with a mix of love and suspicion. The client meeting was a welcome distraction. Aisha bundled Noor into a sling and navigated the subway to a sleek Williamsburg loft, where she discussed color palettes and furniture layouts with a young tech entrepreneur. Noor slept through most of it, her warmth grounding Aisha as she slipped back into the role of confident designer. But even as she sketched ideas and nodded at her clients' requests, her mind wandered to Malik. His hesitation in the hospital, his distance at home, that cryptic text. Each memory was a thread, weaving a tapestry of doubt she couldn't ignore. Back at the apartment, Aisha settled Noor in her crib and began tidying the living room, her hands restless. As she straightened a stack of Malik's architecture magazines, a small receipt slipped from between the pages. She picked it up, her eyes scanning it absently. A coffee shop in Dumbo, dated 2 days before Noor's birth. Odd, since Malik rarely went to Dumbo. The total was for 2 coffees. Her stomach twisted. It was nothing, she told herself. Just a meeting with a colleague. But the receipt felt like another thread, another question. That evening, Malik came home late, his tie loosened and his face drawn. "Long day," he muttered, dropping his bag by the door. Aisha watched him from the couch, where she was folding Noor's onesies. "Everything okay at work?" she asked, keeping her tone light. "Yeah," he said, avoiding her eyes. "Just a lot of deadlines." He headed to the kitchen, and Aisha's gaze followed him, landing on his bag. A corner of white paper peeked out from the side pocket. Her pulse quickened. She waited until he was out of sight, then quietly unzipped the bag. Inside was a folded envelope, unmarked. Her fingers hesitated, guilt prickling her skin, but she opened it. A single sheet of paper, a printed email, confirming your appointment with Dr. Ellis, 3 p.m., October 12th. The date was from last month, before Noor's birth. Aisha frowned. Malik hadn't mentioned any doctor's visits. She slipped the paper back just as Malik returned with a glass of water. "You're quiet tonight," he said, his voice soft but edged with something she couldn't place. "Just tired," she lied, her mind racing. Why would he hide a doctor's appointment? Was he sick? Or was it something else entirely? Over the next few days, Aisha became hyper-aware of Malik's habits. The way he locked his phone screen when she entered the room. The late-night calls he took in the hallway, his voice too low to make out. Each moment was small, easily explained away, but together they built a quiet crescendo of unease. Aisha's emotional nature, usually a strength, turned against her, amplifying every doubt. She oscillated between hope. Maybe he was planning a surprise, maybe he was just stressed, and disappointment, a sinking fear that the man she loved was slipping away. One afternoon, while Malik was at work, Aisha's sister, Layla, stopped by. They sat on the couch, Noor dozing in Layla's arms, and Aisha found herself spilling her worries. "He's not himself, Layla. It's like he's carrying something he won't share." Layla's brow furrowed, her protective streak flaring. "Have you asked him outright?" "I've tried," Aisha said, her voice breaking. "He shuts down. And then there's this text I saw, and a receipt, and this doctor's appointment he never mentioned." Layla's eyes narrowed. "You think he's hiding something big?" "I don't know," Aisha admitted, tears stinging her eyes. "But I can't shake the feeling that it's about Noor. The way he looks at her. It's not right." Layla squeezed her hand. "You're not crazy, Aisha. If your gut's telling you something's wrong, listen to it. But be careful. You don't want to push him away if it's nothing." Aisha nodded, but the weight of her suspicions only grew heavier. That night, as she and Malik ate dinner in near silence, she studied him, the lines around his eyes, the way his fork paused mid-air. She wanted to confront him, to demand answers, but fear held her back. What if the truth was worse than the doubt? The turning point came on a rainy Saturday. Malik had left early for a site visit, and Aisha, restless, decided to organize their shared office. As she sorted through files, she found a locked drawer in Malik's desk. Her heart thudded. She'd never noticed it before. After a moment's hesitation, she grabbed a paperclip and, with trembling hands, picked the lock, a skill she'd learned as a teenager sneaking into her father's study. Inside was a single item, a small worn photo of a young girl, no older than 5, with Malik's eyes. On the back, in faded ink, was a name, Lila. Aisha's breath caught. Who was this girl? Why was her photo hidden? And why did she look so much like Malik? The questions swirled, each one sharper than the last, as the rain tapped against the window and Noor's soft cries echoed from the next room. The photo of the girl, Lila, lay heavy in Aisha's hand, its edges worn as if it had been handled countless times. The child's dark eyes, so like Malik's, stared back at her, a silent accusation. Aisha's chest tightened, her mind racing with possibilities. A niece. A cousin. But why hide it? And why lock it away? Noor's cries pierced the quiet, pulling Aisha back to the present. She slipped the photo into her pocket, her fingers trembling, and went to soothe her daughter, but the questions clung to her like damp air. The next morning, Aisha moved through her routine with mechanical precision. Feeding Noor, brewing coffee, sketching designs for a client. But her thoughts were elsewhere, tangled in the mystery of Lila. Malik was already gone, leaving a note about a weekend project meeting. His absence felt deliberate, another thread in the web of distance he'd woven since Noor's birth. Aisha's emotional core, usually a source of strength, churned with conflicting tides. Hope that this was all a misunderstanding, doubt that eroded her trust, and a growing fear that the man she loved was a stranger. She waited until Noor was napping, then returned to the office. The locked drawer was empty now, the photo's absence glaring. Malik must have moved it. Her stomach twisted, but she wasn't deterred. She rifled through his desk, her hands steady despite the guilt prickling her skin. In a folder labeled Taxes, she found a bank statement she didn't recognize. A series of monthly transfers, $200, small but consistent, to an account in someone else's name. Sarah Coleman. The name meant nothing to Aisha, but the secrecy of it stung. Why hadn't Malik mentioned this? Was it for Lila? Someone else? Her phone buzzed, startling her. A text from Malik. Running late. Clients being difficult. Home by 8. She stared at the words, her intuition flaring. The lie was subtle, but she felt it. Malik's client meetings had been vague lately, his explanations thin. She typed a reply, "Okay, love you," but didn't hit send. Instead, she opened his phone's location-sharing app, something they'd set up years ago for safety. His dot pulsed in Red Hook, nowhere near his firm's office or any project site she knew. Her heart sank, heavy with betrayal. That afternoon, Aisha's mother, Amira, came over, her presence a balm to Aisha's fraying nerves. They sat at the kitchen table, Noor gurgling in a bouncer nearby. Aisha hesitated, then showed her mother the photo of Lila, her voice low. "I found this in Malik's desk. Locked away." Amira's eyes narrowed as she studied the image. "She looks like him," she said, her tone careful. "Did he ever mention a sister? A cousin?" "No," Aisha said, her throat tight. "He said he was an only child. His parents died when he was young, and he doesn't talk about family." She paused, the weight of her words settling. What if he's been lying? Amira reached for her hand, her grip firm. "Don't jump to conclusions, Habibti. But don't ignore your instincts either. Ask him. Not with anger but with love. He's your husband." Aisha nodded, but doubt gnawed at her. Asking Malik felt like stepping onto a frozen lake, unsure if it would hold. Still, her mother's words sparked a flicker of hope. Maybe there was an explanation, something simple and innocent. That evening, Malik came home, his face tired but guarded. Aisha waited until Noor was asleep, then joined him on the couch, her heart pounding. "Malik," she began, her voice soft, "I found something. A photo of a little girl. Lila." His reaction was instant, a flinch, subtle but unmistakable. "Where'd you find it?" he asked, his tone too casual. In your desk. She held his gaze, searching for truth. Who is she? Malik's jaw tightened, and for a moment, she thought he'd shut down. Then he sighed, running a hand through his hair. She's a relative. From a long time ago. I didn't want to bring up old stuff. A relative. Aisha's voice wavered, caught between relief and skepticism. Why lock it away? Why not tell me? It's complicated, he said, his eyes avoiding hers. Family stuff. It doesn't matter now. It matters to me, she pressed, her voice rising. You've been different since Noor was born. Distant. I deserve to know why. Malik stood, his movements sharp. I'm trying, Aisha. It's not about you or Noor. Just drop it, okay? He walked to the bedroom, leaving her alone with the echo of his words. Aisha's hope crumbled, replaced by a cold fear. His defensiveness, his refusal to explain, it was more than family stuff. She felt the weight of their marriage shifting, the foundation cracking beneath her. The next day, Aisha took Noor to a park, needing air to clear her head. As she pushed the stroller, her phone rang. Her sister, Layla, checking in. Aisha spilled everything. The photo, the bank statement, Malik's location in Red Hook. Layla's voice was sharp with concern. You need to dig deeper, Aisha. If he won't talk, find answers yourself. Aisha hesitated, then agreed. Back home, she waited until Malik was in the shower, his phone left on the counter. Her fingers shook as she unlocked it, guilt warring with resolve. She scrolled through his texts, finding nothing unusual until she opened his email. A message from a week ago, buried in a folder labeled Work, caught her eye. It was from Sarah Coleman, the same name from the bank statement. We need to meet, it read. It's about Lila. She's asking questions. No details, no context, but the words hit Aisha like a punch. She closed the email, her mind reeling. Who was Sarah? And why was Lila, a child from a faded photo, asking questions? Aisha's fear deepened, but so did her determination. She couldn't stop now. That night, unable to sleep, Aisha sat at her laptop, Noor's soft breaths filling the room. On a whim, she searched Sarah Coleman online, cross-referencing with Malik's name and Red Hook. The results were sparse, but one hit stopped her cold. A decade-old article from a local paper about a community center in Red Hook. It mentioned a volunteer, Sarah Coleman, and included a grainy photo of a group, including a younger Malik. He was smiling, his arm around Sarah, who held a little girl with familiar dark eyes, Lila. Aisha's breath hitched. The article was dated 10 years ago, when Malik claimed he was in grad school, long before they'd met. He'd never mentioned Red Hook, never mentioned Sarah or Lila. The connection was small, a single clue, but it tied Malik's present to a past he'd buried. And it raised a question that chilled her. What else was he hiding? The apartment was suffocatingly quiet, the only sound Noor's soft breaths from her crib in the next room. Aisha sat on the couch, the photo of Lila and the printed article about Sarah Coleman clutched in her lap. Her heart pounded, a drumbeat of dread and resolve. She'd spent the day piecing together fragments, Malik's lies, the bank transfers, the Red Hook connection, and each one carved a deeper wound. Tonight, she couldn't wait any longer. She needed the truth, no matter how much it hurt. Malik came home late, his coat damp from the October drizzle. He paused in the doorway, sensing the weight of her stare. You okay? He asked, his voice cautious, as he hung his coat. No, Aisha said, her tone steady despite the storm inside her. Sit down, Malik. We need to talk. He hesitated, then sank into the armchair across from her, his eyes wary. What's this about? Aisha held up the photo of Lila, her hand trembling. This. And Sarah Coleman. And Red Hook. I know you've been lying to me. Malik's face tightened, a flicker of panic crossing his features. Aisha, I told you, Lila's just a relative. Stop, she cut in, her voice sharp. Don't lie to me again. I found the bank statements, the email from Sarah. I know you were in Red Hook with her 10 years ago. I saw the article. She tossed the printed page onto the coffee table, her chest heaving. Who is Lila? And why are you hiding her? Malik's gaze darted to the article, then back to Aisha. For a moment, he looked cornered, his shoulders hunching. It's not what you think, he said, his voice low. You're blowing this out of proportion. Am I? Aisha's voice cracked, tears burning her eyes. You've been distant since Noor was born. You flinch when you look at her. You're sneaking around, hiding things. I'm your wife, Malik. I deserve the truth. He stood abruptly, pacing to the window, his hands clenched. You don't understand, Aisha. It's complicated. Then make me understand, she shouted, rising to her feet. The photo fell to the floor, Lila's dark eyes staring up at them. Is Lila your daughter? Is that why you can't look at Noor? Because she reminds you of her. Malik froze, his back to her, and the silence was deafening. Aisha's heart plummeted, the question she'd barely dared to voice now hanging between them. She stepped closer, her voice softening, pleading. Malik, please. Just tell me. He turned slowly, his face a mask of pain, and when he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. Lila's not my daughter. He swallowed hard, his eyes glistening. She's my sister. Aisha blinked, the words hitting her like a physical blow. Your sister. Her mind reeled, grasping for clarity. You said you were an only child. You said your parents died when you were young. I lied, Malik said, his voice breaking. He sank back into the chair, his hands covering his face. I didn't want to bring it up. I didn't want you to know. Know what? Aisha's voice trembled, a mix of anger and heartbreak. What could be so bad that you'd lie to me for years? Malik looked up, his eyes raw, haunted. My parents didn't die. They abandoned us. Me and Lila. I was 16, she was 5. Our mom was an addict, our dad was worse. They left us in a motel in Red Hook with nothing but a note saying they couldn't do it anymore. His voice cracked, and he wiped at his eyes. I took care of Lila for 2 years, bouncing between shelters, scraping by. Sarah Coleman, she was a volunteer at a community center. She helped us, got us food, clothes. But then social services found out. They took Lila away. Put her in foster care. I was too young to keep her. Aisha's legs gave out, and she sank onto the couch, her breath shallow. The weight of his words crushed her. Shock, betrayal, and a piercing sorrow for the boy he'd been. Why didn't you tell me? She whispered, tears streaming down her face. I'm your wife. I would have understood. Malik shook his head, his voice hoarse. I was ashamed. I didn't want you to see that part of me, the kid who failed his sister. I thought if I buried it, it'd go away. But then Noor was born. He paused, his gaze distant. She looks so much like Lila. Every time I see her, I see my failure. I couldn't protect Lila, and I'm terrified I'll fail Noor too. Aisha's heart shattered, the pieces jagged with love and pain. She wanted to reach for him, to hold him, but the betrayal held her back. So you pushed me away, she said, her voice trembling. You lied to me, hid this huge part of your life. And those bank transfers. The emails with Sarah. Malik's eyes widened, guilt flashing across his face. Sarah's been helping me stay in touch with Lila. She's 13 now, in a foster home upstate. The money, it's for her, For school supplies, clothes. I didn't want you to know because I didn't want you to think I was choosing her over us. Aisha's tears fell faster, her voice rising with anguish. You did choose her over us. You chose secrets over me, over Noor. You let me think I was crazy, doubting you, when all this time you were carrying this alone. She stood, her hands shaking. I love you, Malik, but this breaks my heart. Malik reached for her, his voice desperate. Aisha, I'm sorry. I didn't know how to tell you. I thought I was protecting you. Protecting me, she cried, stepping back. You broke my trust. You made me feel like I was losing you. Her sobs choked her, and she pressed a hand to her mouth, the room blurring through her tears. Malik's face crumpled, and he sank to his knees, his head bowed. I love you, he whispered. I love Noor. I didn't know how to carry it all. Aisha stood there, torn between the man she loved and the stranger he'd revealed himself to be. The revelation of Lila, of his past, was a wound that bled with every heartbeat. She wanted to forgive him, to rebuild, but the heartbreak was too raw, the betrayal too deep. Noor's cry broke the silence, a sharp reminder of the life they'd built together. Aisha wiped her eyes, her voice barely audible. I need time, Malik. I don't know what this means for us. She turned and walked to Noor's room, leaving Malik alone in the dim light, the weight of their shattered trust heavy between them. The apartment felt like a museum of their marriage, every corner holding a memory, every object a silent witness to Aisha's unraveling world. She sat at the kitchen table, Noor asleep in her arms, the photo of Lila tucked into her pocket. Malik's confession echoed in her mind, his abandoned childhood, his sister taken from him, his fear of failing Noor. The truth had gutted her, leaving a raw ache where trust once lived. Betrayal mingled with empathy, love clashed with heartbreak, and Aisha was caught in the undertow, searching for solid ground. Malik had slept on the couch the past 3 nights, his presence a quiet shadow. They moved around each other with careful politeness, speaking only of Noor's needs, diapers, feedings, naps. Aisha's heart, so attuned to emotion, swung wildly. One moment yearning to hold him, to heal his wounds, the next, recoiling from the lies that had fractured their bond. She needed to decide, not just for herself, but for Noor, who deserved a home built on truth. The first step came unexpectedly. Aisha's mother, Amira, insisted she visit, sensing her daughter's turmoil through their daily calls. At Amira's cluttered Bronx apartment, surrounded by the familiar scent of jasmine and spices, Aisha broke. She told her mother everything. Lila, Malik's past, the secrets that had eroded her trust. Amira listened, her eyes soft but steady, and when Aisha finished, sobbing into her hands, Amira pulled her close. You're stronger than you know, Habibti, Amira said, her voice a lifeline. Love is not enough on its own. It needs trust, honesty. You must decide what you can carry and what you cannot. Aisha clung to those words, letting them anchor her. That night, she looked at Noor, her daughter's tiny face a mirror of hope, and felt a shift. She couldn't stay in limbo, suspended between love and pain. She owed herself clarity, even if it meant letting go. The next day, Aisha asked Malik to meet her at a park near their apartment. They sat on a bench, Noor in her stroller, the autumn leaves swirling around them. The air was crisp, carrying the promise of change. Aisha's heart raced, but her voice was calm, deliberate. I've been thinking about us, she began, her eyes on Noor. About what you told me. I understand why you hid your past. It hurt you, shaped you. But you chose to lie to me, Malik. 4 years. That's what I can't forgive. Malik's face tightened, his hands clasped tightly in his lap. I know I messed up, Aisha. I'm trying to make it right. I'll do anything. She shook her head, tears prickling her eyes. It's not about doing. It's about being. I needed you to be honest, to trust me with your pain. Instead, you shut me out. I felt like I was losing you, and I was right. He looked away, his jaw trembling. I love you, he whispered. I love Noor. Isn't that enough? It's not, Aisha said, her voice breaking. Love without trust is just weight. I can't carry it anymore. The words hung between them, heavy and final. Malik's eyes glistened, but he didn't argue. Aisha felt a pang of grief, for the man she'd married, for the future they dreamed of, but also a quiet strength. She was choosing herself, choosing Noor. I'm not saying we're done forever, she added, softer now. But I need space. I'm going to stay with my mom for a while. You can see Noor whenever you want. She's your daughter. But I need to figure out who I am without you. Malik nodded, his voice barely audible. I'll respect that. I'm so sorry, Aisha. They sat in silence, the park's hum filling the space where their words had been. Aisha felt the weight of her decision settle, not as relief, but as resolve. It was the hardest choice she'd ever made, but it was hers. Weeks later, Aisha settled into her mother's spare room, Noor's crib tucked beside her bed. She threw herself into her work, designing a cozy bookstore in Harlem that felt like a small act of creation, a way to rebuild. Her sisters visited often, their laughter a reminder of her roots. Layla, ever protective, helped her unpack, pausing to hug her tightly. You're doing the right thing, Layla said. You're not running. You're choosing. Aisha clung to that thought, letting it guide her through the lonely nights. She and Malik texted about Noor, schedules, milestones, but kept their distance. He was trying, sending photos of himself reading to Noor during visits, but Aisha wasn't ready to bridge the gap. Not yet. One evening, while sorting through her things, Aisha found the photo of Layla. She studied it, her heart aching for the girl Malik had lost, for the boy he'd been. On impulse, she mailed the photo to the address listed in Sarah Coleman's email, with a note, Layla deserves to know her brother loves her. Tell her about him. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a step toward healing, a way to honor the truth Malik had finally shared. Months later, Aisha stood in the finished bookstore, its shelves lined with stories, its walls painted in warm ochre. Noor, now crawling, babbled at her feet, tugging at a stray ribbon. Aisha's client, a kind-eyed woman, beamed. You've got a gift, she said. This place feels like home. Aisha smiled, the words sinking deep. Home. She was building one, piece by piece, for herself and Noor. The pain of Malik's betrayal lingered, a scar that would always mark her, but it no longer defined her. She was Aisha, mother, designer, daughter, sister, whole in her own right. As she locked up the bookstore, the city buzzing around her, Aisha looked at Noor, her daughter's eyes bright with wonder. She thought of Malik, of Layla, of the fragile threads that tied them all. Life was messy, imperfect, but it was hers to shape. With Noor in her arms, she stepped into the evening light, her heart steady, her future unwritten. And in that moment she knew, sometimes, the bravest endings are the ones that leave room for hope to grow.